I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm so tired. I am absolutely exhausted listening to people repeat the same recycled, outdated talking points about Zack Snyder's DCEU like they're facts when they're not even close. Somewhere along the way, I didn't like the tone turned into the universe was a failure, and the internet just ran with it. People treat it like gospel, even though the financials tell a completely different story. So let's break this down completely. Let's talk about what Snyder actually touched, what those projects did financially, and when things truly fell apart. Because, spoiler alert, the collapse happened after the Snyder era, not during it. But before we talk numbers, let's actually acknowledge what Snyder was responsible for. His fingerprints were on Man of Steel, BVS, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Suicide Squad, the 2016 one, and then the Snyder Justice League movie, the Zack Snyder's Justice League. Not every decision was his, obviously. That's not how studios work. But these films used his cast, his world, his tone, his story direction. This matters because when people say the Snyderverse fails, they're pointing at the exact movies that kept DC financially alive in the 2010s. But yeah, let's go to the back and start at the start. Man of Steel costed around 225 million to make, and marketing, and you're looking at maybe about 350 or 375 million. But it pulled in a whopping 670 million. No matter how you twist that, that's a profitable film, especially for a reboot and a brand new tonal direction. This was DC saying, we're going darker, we're going mythic, we're going operatic, and audience showed up. Let's move on to The Suicide Squad 2016. Yes, the studio interfered. Yes, the tone was changed. But financially, that movie made over $750 million of a $175 million budget. Let me repeat that. This messy, chaotic, studio-molded Suicide Squad made $750 million. Is that a failure? Then 90% of Hollywood films are a failure for sure. But now we get to the big one, the most controversial one, the BVS movie. People love calling this a flop, and it blows my mind. This movie had a massive marketing push, about 400 million total investments, and it earned 873 million. That's more than double the production cost. That is profit, huge profit. But because the internet didn't like the Martha scene, suddenly it's treated like some catastrophic disaster. The reality, two of the world's biggest superheroes introduced in a darker, more serious context, still nearly hit $1 billion without the Marvel formula. That's success, uncomfortable success for its critics, but it's success nonetheless. And now we start talking about the rough times for the DCEU, because we're going to talk about the Justice League movie, the mess one, the Justice League. And here's where people need to separate facts from fiction. 2017 Justice League, the theatrical version, it's not a Snyder film. It was a Frankenstein monster the studio demanded, built off last-minute reshot, rewrites, and a tone change. They spent around 300 million making and remaking that movie. And even then, it still pulled in over 650 million. By far, it's probably one of the worst DC movies. It's not amazing, definitely underperformed, but again, not a flop in raw numbers. You know what was a failure? Warner Bros. Trying to turn Snyder's serious mythical tone into a quippy MCU clone halfway through. You can't build a house, rip out half the foundation, throw on a new roof, and then act surprised when it leaks. But then we move on to the Zack Snyder's Justice League. Later on, Snyder finished his version for HBO Max. He invested about $70 million into reshoots, VFX, and restoring, and what happened? It dominated the controversy. It traded in dozens of countries. People subscribed to HBO Max significantly for it. It boosted engagement, rewatches, subscriptions, and platform visibility. Was it a box office movie? No, it wasn't supposed to be. It was designed to strengthen HBO Max, and it did exactly that. It was a fantastic movie, way better than the Justice League. But we are getting ahead of ourselves because we skipped a couple of movies Zack Snyder was actually involved in. The first one being Wonder Woman, and that was a massive win. So let's talk about that. Arguably the cleanest success story of the whole era. $150 million to make and over $800 million earned. It became one of the most successful female-led movies ever, and it probably boosted numbers for for Wonder Woman way out of anyone's league. And guess what? It came from the universe Snyder built. His cast, his setup, his tone. People don't like hearing that, but it's completely true. And yes, that Wonder Woman movie was completely amazing and was not directed by Zack Snyder, but still followed his path. But let's talk about Aquaman. And here is the knockout punch. Aquaman, the movie, people assumed would flop. Shattered expectations. Budget was somewhere between $160 and $200 million, depending on the sources. Let's call it 250 with marketing if you want. And it soared to $1.148 billion, not million, $billion. A $1 billion film born out of the Snyder era, starring Snyder's Aquaman in Snyder's world, with Snyder's tone still in its DNA. This is the part of the conversation people intentionally avoid because it destroys the narrative. So again, where is the failure? Let's recap Snyder's era films. So we have Man of Steel, which was a success, BVS, a success, Wonder Woman, a success, Suicide Squad, a success, Aquaman, a success, and then the Zack Snyder Justice League, again a success. All those movies made money, built the universe, produced DC's first $1 billion film since Nolan, launched huge characters, gave DC an identity, and brought people into theaters. Not one of those movies flopped financially, not one. The reality is simple. Snyder's DCEU wasn't destroyed by bad numbers. It was destroyed by studio panic. Warner Brothers and DC kept changing direction every single time someone at the top got nervous, cutting out cameos, removing Superman from like Shazam, trying to mimic Marvel's overnight, scrapping long-term plans, rewriting movies mid-production, ignoring what audience already invested in. It wasn't a creative failure, it was a financial failure, it was a management failure. And look at the DCU now. Instead of building out the core Justice League characters, we're getting a Jimmy Olsen show, a Waller show, a Lanterns TV show, instead of a blockbuster movie. And we don't even know when Wonder Woman will show up. And there's still no final Batman reveal. We don't even know who's playing Batman. The reboot is focusing on side characters before establishing the main pillars. And yet, Warner Bros. Isn't getting as much involved in that universe. And like the DCEU, it was messy because of Warner Bros. It's the same mistake Warner Bros. Always makes, losing focus on the big picture. And yet Snyder somehow gets blamed for everything that went wrong. So here is the simple truth. If you personally didn't like the tone of the Snyder films, that's completely valid. Taste is subjective. But calling his universe a flop is factually false. The financials prove it. The streaming numbers prove it. The long-term cultural impact proves it. Even the films that were messed with or taken away from him still made money. The Snyderverse didn't collapse under its own weight. It dismantled by a studio that couldn't commit to a plan. And until we acknowledge that, the conversation stays dishonest. But anyways, let me know down in the comment section down below your thoughts on this topic. And without anything further to say, I'll see you all later. Goodbye and thanks for watching.